Have you ever caught yourself believing something you knew, deep down, wasn't really true? Maybe you told yourself you were fine when everything in you felt heavy. Maybe you insisted you didn't care when a part of you was quietly breaking. Or maybe you convinced yourself that you didn't want something simply because wanting it felt too risky. If you've ever lived in that strange space between what you say and what you feel, then you've already met the quiet force this video is about. Self-deception isn't loud. It doesn't storm into your life or announce itself with warning signs. It moves like a whisper, shaping your choices when you're not looking. It hides in your excuses, your habits, your automatic reactions. And sometimes it even hides inside your hope. You don't notice it because it wears a mask that looks like protection. It offers comfort. It promises relief. And for a moment, it works. But have you ever wondered why you cling to certain stories about yourself, even when they no longer fit? Why some truths feel too heavy to touch? Why you push away clarity even though a part of you is starving for it? There's something inside you that's trying to keep you safe, even if the methods aren't always helpful anymore. As you listen to this, I want you to notice the small reactions in your body, the tightening, the softening, the moments where you hold your breath. These tiny shifts are clues. They show you where something in you has been trying to survive. And maybe, without realizing it, you've been hiding from truths that could set you free. This is where our journey begins, at the doorway between the story you tell the world and the story you whisper to yourself today now. Self-deception is not something out there waiting to catch you. It lives inside you, quietly shaping the way you see yourself in the world. Imagine it as a shadowy companion that has followed you since childhood, sometimes helpful, sometimes misleading. It's not evil. It doesn't have a moral agenda. It simply wants one thing: to protect you from feeling pain, shame, or rejection. And because it is so intimately entwined with your survival instincts, you often mistake it for truth. Think about the moments when you say, "I don't need anyone," but then feel a quiet ache when no one reaches out. Or when you convince yourself you're too busy to pursue a dream, even though a small voice keeps whispering that this is what you want. That voice of self-deception is not trying to sabotage you. It is trying to shield you from disappointment, fear, or discomfort. It creates stories, excuses, and rationalizations that feel safe, even if they slowly limit the life you truly want. Self-deception lives in your relationships too. You may find yourself clinging to people who don't see your worth, or avoiding intimacy because you're afraid of being seen as flawed. You justify the patterns you follow, whispering, "This is just who I am," while a part of you longs for something different. It's as if you are wearing invisible lenses that slightly distort reality, just enough to protect your heart, but just enough to keep you from seeing things clearly. And here's the subtle irony. Self-deception can feel comforting while simultaneously isolating you. It can make you believe that you are strong and independent, yet leave you lonely and misunderstood. It can convince you that you are confident, yet quietly erode your sense of self-worth. It's that voice that tells you, "You're fine," when everything in your body says otherwise. The first step in understanding self-deception is not judgment. It is curiosity. You begin to notice when you are telling yourself stories that keep you small, stories that protect you in the short term but limit you in the long term. You begin to recognize the clever ways your mind hides the truth from you, often disguising it as logic, reason, or practicality. And you start to see the human side of it, the part of you that has been trying in the only way it knew how to keep you safe. This is why self-deception is not just a psychological concept. It's a living, breathing part of your inner world. It shapes your decisions, your emotions, your patterns, your relationships. And by noticing it without blame, you give yourself the chance to meet it with empathy, to see not just what it hides, but why it has been there all along. It is a companion, yes, but it is one whose role you can begin to understand and eventually transform. Self-deception doesn't appear out of nowhere. It begins quietly, often in the earliest chapters of your life, in the small and intimate moments where your heart first learned to protect itself. Think back, if you can, to your childhood, the times you were told to be good, quiet, or strong before you even understood what those words truly meant. Maybe you were shushed when you cried, corrected when you expressed anger, or ignored when you sought attention. In those moments, a subtle lesson was planted. Some feelings were safe, and some were too dangerous to show. Imagine a young version of yourself learning to navigate a world that sometimes felt unpredictable or unkind. You discovered quickly that certain truths about your inner life were inconvenient to share. You might have learned that showing fear or vulnerability invited criticism, judgment, or even punishment. So, you developed little strategies, little lies to yourself to survive. Perhaps you convinced yourself that you were fine when you weren't, that your needs weren't important, or that your desires were too risky to voice. These early self-protective habits became the seeds of self-deception. It often starts in relationships. Children are wired to seek connection and approval, yet when their emotional needs are overlooked or dismissed, they begin to adapt. They hide pieces of themselves to be accepted. Over time, these adaptations become automatic. You may not even notice them, but they shape the lens through which you see yourself and others. You learned, implicitly, that it's safer to tell yourself a story than to face a painful reality. Even the smallest experiences can leave a lasting mark. The friend who teased you, the parent who demanded perfection, the teacher who overlooked your effort. Each moment subtly reinforced the idea that certain parts of yourself were better left unseen. And so, the mind became clever. It learned how to create narratives that soothed the hurt, shielded your identity, and allowed you to function. Sometimes it told you that failure wasn't possible. Sometimes that your feelings didn't matter. Sometimes that you were strong enough to handle everything alone. Self-deception is also nurtured by fear, fear of shame, of rejection, of being too much or not enough. The mind, in its wisdom, develops what we might call protective myths. These myths can take the shape of overconfidence, denial, or rationalization. They convince you that what you feel or think is acceptable, even when deep down you sense it is. And because these myths were forged in the early environment of your life, they carry a weight of survival, a sense of necessity that makes them hard to question. Yet beneath the layers of self-deception, your authentic self has always been there, quietly observing, quietly waiting. The child who learned to hide, the teen who learned to rationalize, the adult who still sometimes tells themselves, "I'm fine," when they aren't, all of it stems from a deep and human desire. The desire to belong, to be safe, and to be loved. And the paradox is that these early strategies, once vital, now sometimes keep you from the very growth and connection you crave. Recognizing the roots of self-deception is not about blame. It is about seeing with compassion the ways you learn to survive. Your mind created these mechanisms because it cared about you, even if the methods were imperfect. When you understand this, you begin to see that self-deception is a story with a beginning, and that story can be rewritten. You start to notice the patterns that have been living quietly inside you, shaping your choices and your feelings, and you prepare to meet them with curiosity rather than fear. The journey from understanding to transformation begins here, by tracing the lines back to where they first took shape, by seeing the child within you who was doing their best, and by acknowledging that what once protected you may now be asking to evolve. As you grew, the early lessons of self-deception didn't disappear, they evolved. They became a mask, a carefully crafted persona you wear to navigate the world safely. Think about it. The confident smile you put on in meetings, the laughter you force at a joke you don't find funny, the casual "I'm fine" you mutter when someone asks, that is the mask at work. It is clever, adaptive, and deeply familiar. The mask serves a purpose. It shields you from judgment, protects you from rejection, and allows you to function even when your inner world feels messy or fragile. Imagine it as armor. It keeps the sharp edges of vulnerability at bay. On the outside, you appear strong, composed, capable. Others see someone who handles life with grace. They don't see the internal negotiations, the quiet battles, the stories you tell yourself to feel safe. But here's the paradox. The mask is both protective and isolating. While it hides your weaknesses, it also hides your truths. It can make you feel lonely even in a crowded room, disconnected from parts of yourself you long to express. The very thing that helps you survive can also keep you trapped. You present an image of control, yet inside uncertainty lingers. You show strength, yet tenderness quietly waits to be acknowledged. You act fearless, yet fear quietly shapes your choices. Consider the moments when you sense that something isn't quite right. Perhaps you smile when you want to cry or nod when you wish to protest. The mask allows life to continue smoothly, but it comes at a cost. The dissonance between external perception and internal reality grows. You might wonder, why do I feel so exhausted? Why does joy feel fleeting? Why am I stuck in patterns I don't fully understand? These questions are the whispers of your true self, nudging you toward awareness. The mask is also deeply relational. It shapes the way you connect with others, sometimes pushing you to maintain appearances instead of genuine intimacy. You may notice yourself playing roles to be liked, admired, or accepted, subtly hiding aspects of your personality that feel risky. And in doing so, you risk losing touch with the very authenticity that could bring you the connection you crave. But here's the truth. The mask was never meant to be permanent. It was born from necessity, a creative solution to the challenges you faced in your earliest years. It protected you when there was no other choice. And now, understanding it allows you to meet it with compassion, not shame. You can start to recognize when you are wearing it and when you are letting it dictate your decisions, emotions, or relationships. So take a moment to look inward. Where is your mask shining brightest? Where is it hiding truths you've been avoiding? And what would it feel like to gently lift it, even for a moment, and meet yourself fully? The mask is part of your story, yes, but it is not your entire story. Beneath it, your true self has been waiting patiently, curious, tender, and ready to be seen. Even as an adult, self-deception quietly threads through your daily life, shaping your emotions, choices, and relationships in ways you might barely notice. It hides in the small, familiar patterns, the moments you justify staying in situations that no longer serve you, the times you avoid confronting uncomfortable truths, the little lies you tell yourself about why you can't pursue what you really want. These aren't dramatic acts. They are subtle, almost invisible, yet their impact runs deep. Have you ever noticed yourself nodding along when you secretly disagree, or smiling while your heart is heavy, pretending that everything is fine? That's self-deception in action. The same force that once protected you now quietly maintains the illusion of safety. It shields you from discomfort, but it also keeps you from experiencing reality fully. You might wonder, why do I feel stuck? Why does dissatisfaction linger, even when everything seems fine on the surface? These feelings are signals, gentle nudges from your deeper self, urging you to pay attention. Self-deception often shows up in relationships. You may find yourself clinging to people who don't truly meet your emotional needs, convincing yourself that love, approval, or acceptance is contingent on keeping quiet or playing a role. You may avoid conversations that feel risky, fearing judgment or conflict. Or perhaps you see patterns repeating choices that lead to frustration or disappointment, and you silently rationalize them, telling yourself, it's just the way things are. It also shapes your inner dialogue. You tell yourself stories about your limitations, your failures, or your inadequacies, often without realizing it. You might think, I'm too busy, I'll never be enough, or I'm fine on my own. Yet under these stories, a quieter truth persists. Your needs, desires, and emotions are real and worthy of acknowledgement. And the tension between these truths and the narratives you tell yourself creates subtle emotional friction. Anxiety, restlessness, dissatisfaction, or even quiet shame. Self-deception can be triggered by stress, fear, or change. When life feels unpredictable, the mind leans on familiar stories, rationalizations, or avoidance. It's a coping mechanism, yes, but one that can perpetuate patterns that no longer serve you. You might notice a recurring cycle, a choice made to avoid discomfort, followed by quiet regret, followed by rationalization, and the pattern continues. Ask yourself gently, where in your life are you telling yourself a story to feel safe? Where are you avoiding truths that could help you grow? Where are you choosing the illusion of comfort over the reality of fulfillment? Recognizing these patterns doesn't mean judgment. It means awareness. It means noticing the clever ways your mind tries to protect you, even when the methods no longer align with your goals or desires. And here's the most important part. Even though self-deception can feel heavy and persistent, it is not permanent. By bringing it into awareness, you begin to loosen its grip. By noticing the emotional triggers, the subtle patterns, and the recurring struggles, you create a space where change becomes possible. You can start to distinguish between the stories that serve you and the ones that hold you back. And in that space, even the smallest act of honesty with yourself or with others becomes a powerful step toward freedom. Even though self-deception can feel heavy, there is hope, a quiet, steady possibility that you can begin to untangle the stories that no longer serve you. The first step is gentle awareness. Notice when you are telling yourself stories to protect yourself, when you are avoiding truths, or when the mask you wear feels heavier than the relief it brings. Awareness is not judgment. It is simply noticing, like seeing a shadow on the wall and saying, "Ah, there you are." One of the most powerful paths toward healing is reparenting yourself. Imagine the child you once were, the one who learned to hide, rationalize, and protect. Picture yourself kneeling beside them, offering understanding, comfort, and reassurance. Tell them it's safe to feel, safe to be honest, and safe to make mistakes. When you meet yourself with empathy, the need for self-deception begins to loosen. You no longer need to hide parts of yourself because those parts are recognized, valued, and loved. Healing also grows from small acts of honesty. Start where it feels safe, perhaps journaling your true feelings, sharing a thought with a trusted friend, or admitting a fear to yourself. These moments are not failures, they are openings. Each small act of honesty chips away at the habitual patterns that keep you bound to self-deception. Over time, these small openings expand, creating more space for authenticity and presence. Another essential piece is curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why am I wrong?" or "Why do I fail?" ask, "What is this feeling trying to show me?" or "What truth am I afraid to face?" Curiosity transforms fear into exploration. It allows you to approach your patterns with compassion rather than blame, understanding rather than frustration. You begin to see self-deception not as an enemy, but as a guide that has been showing you what you need protection from, and now, what you can gently face. Boundaries and self-compassion are also part of the journey. Self-deception often thrived in the absence of healthy boundaries and inner support. As you grow, practice saying no to patterns, relationships, or situations that encourage self-denial. Practice saying yes to your own needs, emotions, and desires. Treat yourself with the care you would offer a beloved friend. And remember, transformation is not instantaneous. It is a process of small, consistent acts, noticing your patterns, offering yourself compassion, choosing honesty, and exploring your inner world with curiosity. Some days will feel easier than others. Some truths will take longer to face, and that is okay. Healing is not a race. It is a gentle unfolding, a steady return to yourself. Ask yourself now, what is one small truth you can acknowledge today? What is one way you can show compassion to the part of you that has been hiding? Even a single step, no matter how small, sets a ripple in motion. And over time, those ripples grow into a tide of clarity, authenticity, and freedom. You are capable of this. Your inner self is waiting, patient, tender, and ready to be met. As you reach the end of this reflection, take a deep breath and feel the weight of your journey. You've explored the quiet corners of your mind, the stories you tell yourself, the masks you wear, and the patterns that have shaped your life. And in doing so, you've begun to recognize something profound. The very mechanisms that once protected you are also part of your strength. They are evidence of your resilience, your intelligence, your desire to survive and belong. Imagine your inner world like a room filled with light and shadow. The shadows are not enemies. They are memories, fears, and protective habits that have served you in the past. The light is your awareness, your compassion, your curiosity. With each gentle step, you allow the light to grow, not to banish the shadows, but to illuminate them, to understand them, to integrate them. You begin to see that what once felt like a limitation is actually an invitation to meet yourself fully, to honor all that you are, and to step more fully into life. You are not broken. You are not flawed for having hidden, denied, or rationalized your feelings. You are human, and being human means learning, growing, and sometimes unlearning. It means carrying both strength and vulnerability, courage and fear. It means having moments where you pretend to be fine and moments where you allow yourself to truly feel. Your worth has never depended on the perfection of your mask. It has always resided in your presence, in your capacity to notice, to care, and to choose authenticity, one moment at a time. As you continue forward, imagine a life where you meet yourself honestly. A life where you no longer feel the need to convince yourself of what isn't true because you have begun to embrace what is. Where fear is met with curiosity, where shame is met with compassion, where the stories you tell yourself serve you rather than bind you. Imagine the relief of saying, "I feel this," or "I want this," without judgment. Imagine the lightness of showing up fully, without hiding, without excuses. Let this reflection be a reminder. Every time you notice a story you've been telling yourself, every time you pause before you hide behind a mask, every time you choose compassion over judgment, you are moving closer to freedom. You are reclaiming pieces of yourself that have been waiting, patient and gentle, for you to notice them. Every small act of honesty is a seed. Every moment of self-compassion is a spark. And over time, those seeds and sparks grow into a life lived with integrity, depth, and authenticity. So carry this with you. You are capable of seeing yourself clearly. You are capable of kindness toward yourself. You are capable of stepping out of patterns that no longer serve you. And in doing so, you make space for a life that feels alive, honest, and deeply your own. Remember, you are worthy. You are resilient. You are whole. And though the journey inward may feel slow at times, each step you take is a return to yourself, a brave, tender, and transformative return. This is your life, your truth, your story, and it is waiting patiently for you to meet it fully with courage, curiosity, and love.